101.7 FM, 710 KEEL. Mike and McCarty, and in studio with us this morning, local attorney John Milkovich, who is a candidate for Louisiana Senate. Golly. Ruben, where are you, baby?
Yeah.
John, welcome. First of all, thanks for coming in.
Hey, Mike and Aaron, thank you so much for having me.
You are running for this seat. You held this seat 4 years ago.
Right.
And it's been changed. The lines are changed a little bit.
Sure.
Tell people who don't know John Milkovich who you are first.
Well, look, I guess you could say I'm a country lawyer. My wife and I have a mom and pop law firm where we've spent 35 years representing working families, and a lot we've done. I may be the most famous free lawyer in Northwest Louisiana, but don't tell that to everybody. I'll get a bunch more calls for. But we're involved in our church. We've been at the same church with the Durons for 37 years. I've been married for 37 years. My wife would hope that by now it was straightened out, but I feel like 3 or 4 times a week.
John Milkovich will never be straightened out.
My wife's still working on me, but my wife is like a perfect person. People say to me, "Is your wife perfect?" I said, "I live with her. She is perfect."
Don't we usually marry up? Don't we?
Yeah,
We outkick our coverage.
There we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's a beautiful lady.
Now explain, because folks have said, well, you are a Republican as we sit here today. You have been a Democrat in the past.
Yep.
When did you make the change, and explain why?
Well, look, I was an old school Democrat, and everybody that's listening knows, or either was or knows someone who was an old school Democrat. Parents, grandparents, great grandparents. But what did old school Democrats believe in? They believed in hard work, Bible values, and a fair shake for working people. That's what I fought for in the legislature. As a Democrat, I authored some of the strongest pro-life bills in America, including, by the way, God be the glory, and thanks to the help of the people of Caddo-DeSoto parishes, but the fetal heartbeat bill and 5 strong anti-abortion laws. I wrote a book defending Donald Trump. I hope that doesn't get me in trouble here. And I received a 100% rating on my voting record from the Pro-Life and Family, Louisiana Family Forum. I was the only member of the Senate that went to the floor of the Senate and proposed hundreds of millions of dollars of targeted specific spending cuts. I was the only member of the Senate that voted against every attempt to increase or extend the sales tax in 2018. And I can assure you I was the only state senator during 2016 and 2020 that voted against the budget 8 times. And again, what was the point? I think the government's spending too much of our money, and I think people need to keep their money.
Would you have voted to bust the spending cap?
No, absolutely not. Look, and Aaron brought it up before we went on air, but I was voting against budgets that were in the range of 30, 32, 34 billion on June 8th, 2023. I was not there. I was not in office at the time. The legislature approved a $45 billion budget, meaning that in about 6 or 7 years, or 8 years, the budget's gone from $29 billion to $45 billion.
I haven't heard that before.
The middle class.
Preaching that. You talk about work for the working people. You talk about the old school Democrats were for the working people. Would you support a minimum wage increase in Louisiana?
Well, I think I did a moderate increase, and there was also another bill that would vary it from district to district. I thought that didn't make an economic sense. But look, in classic free market economics, we don't want any wage supports. At the same time, let's deal in the real world that we're in. We are in a great fight to get people from dependence and government assistance and living in government housing to being out there and having a job and paying rent and really the ultimate buying their own houses, responsible. And, I think back on this Democrat thing for just a minute. I was an old school Democrat. I left the party in 2021, and this is why. And this is my opinion. I believe that the modern Democratic Party in America is being run by Marxists and Leninists. They've gone from hard work, Bible values, a fair shake for working people to atheism, socialism, and abortion. And the Democratic Party used to be for working people. Now it seems like the Democratic Party is for people not working. Mm-hmm. So I'm ticked off. And I'm a defender of Donald Trump. As a Democrat, as I said, I wrote a book defending Donald Trump, Robert Mueller, Aaron Boy for the New World Order. I don't know. They I'm not sure if anyone can even buy it if it's up online. But come by my office and I might even autograph and just give it to you.
You cannot live in the Shreveport area and not understand people's concern about crime. I want to know what legislation John Milkovich will put forward to address crime. We need more cops. We need to be safer in our homes, John.
Well, look, this is what I say. Because of the gravity and seriousness of the times and the challenges that we're facing, I believe this. I don't think it's enough to say, I will do this in the future. I think it's important to say what we have done in the past. This is what I did. As a member of the Louisiana Senate, I was the only member of the Senate between 2016 and 2020 that actually introduced bills to increase jail time for violent crimes. That was a trend at the time where it was just kind of trendy and the lobbyists were all into letting violent criminals out of jail. Well, I filed bills to increase the jail time for violent crimes. I also voted, and I was the only member of the Louisiana Senate to consistently vote. If you're 17, I'm sorry. If you're big enough to do the crime, you're big enough to do the time. I also I went to the floor of the Senate and opposed what I call the daddy daycare bill. It got through the House. How did that happen? They had a bill where if you're a first-degree murderer and you're deemed to be a, quote, primary caretaker, unquote, they let you out of prison, let you put on bedroom slippers and a bathrobe and kind of pat around the house and be a first-degree murderer and role model.
Did you vote for justice reinvestment?
And there was, I'm not sure if I know exactly what bill was. Now, there were
like a series of bills.
I voted against a bunch of it.
Okay.
And for example, I voted against reduced sentence for heroin trafficking. I voted against reduced sentencing for juvenile murders to 25 years. I voted against making juveniles eligible for parole after 25 years.
What about more good time for inmates that they claim are nonviolent?
Yeah. Now, I was willing to look at and consider some grace for people that, issuing worthless checks, nonviolent crimes. But I think if we're going to do something about crime, and by the way, that's part of my record. I voted against, like I say, consistently voted against 17-year-olds being treated as children instead of adults. This is what I believe. Some people say, well, we've got a terrible problem with mass incarceration. The solution is not to release a bunch of violent criminals on the people of Louisiana. And if you talk to police officers, and I have fortunate to have several police officers as friends, this is what they'll tell me. This is what they'll tell anybody that asks them. They're arresting the same people over and over and over again. And here's where I get politically incorrect, if I wasn't already. I think we need to look at the DA's office. And I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to criticize everyone that works at the DA's office, but I'm hearing that there is kind of a revolving door. We know that there was an injection of Soros money into the DA's election, and that's unacceptable. And okay, so
but how can a state lawmaker change that?
Well, I'm going to continue to vote that 17-year-olds should be held accountable. I'm going to continue to try to push these bills to increase the jail time for violent crimes. But I think we need to do this. When I was in Baton Rouge, they had this horrible murder where some teenagers went in and just chopped up and horribly murdered this elderly couple. And it was so ironic and really just devastating. It just made your heart cringe. So they had the story prominently in the Baton Rouge Advocate, and they told the names of the people that had been murdered and, humiliating, traumatic, devastating experience for that family. But they said, by the way, these teenagers, we can't tell you their name. Baloney. I'm going to say if someone commits a violent crime, their name needs to be out there. We need to know. And there needs to be accountability for teenagers. Now, some people say, well, you just want to throw away young. Absolutely not. I've spent... I'm sorry.
We got to take a break. We're up against the clock here.
Sorry.
We're going to talk taxes when we get back.
Okay.
John Milkovich in studio, Mike and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710keel.com.
Back to the big stories of the day with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
And in studio with us this morning, local attorney John Milkovich, candidate for Louisiana Senate. We were talking...
I want to talk taxes with you
right
now. We talked with Daniel Erspamer of the Pelican Institute last hour, and he talked about there is a way to phase out our personal income tax over 7 years, and we don't have to replace the income.
Right.
We can do it because we will grow jobs, we will grow industry in our state, and it can be done. We just have a balloon, an out-of-control state budget,
yes,
and we need to look at that. Do you support getting rid of the personal income tax in Louisiana?
I do, and this is what I'd say about that. when I was in the Senate, and I said this, alluded to this before, I was the only member of the state Senate to go to the floor and propose hundreds of millions of dollars of specific targeted spending cuts to actually cut. Everyone talks about it. I thought, you know what? I'm in the Senate. I said I was against spending. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try. Now, I couldn't get everybody to go along with me on many of the proposed cuts. That is a fact. But the other thing is, as I mentioned, I was the only member of the state Senate that voted every time against increasing or extending the quote temporary sales tax, unquote, which is now permanent. And I was the only member of the state Senate that voted against the budget 8 times. I was named by, and to God be the glory for this, because I can't do anything without him, but John George said I was the most fiscally conservative state senator. To your point, in Louisiana, we thankfully have a constitutional provision that says we can't deficit spend. So if we're going to spend money, we got to tax. So if we want to cut taxes, we got to cut spending. And that's what I tried to do in proposing hundreds of millions of dollars of specific target. And by the way, there were good things like Louisiana subsidizing one of the richest families in Louisiana. The middle-class taxpayers in Louisiana, let me say that again, are subsidizing one of the richest families in Louisiana.
Who?
Well, can I say they're in New Orleans? But anyway.
Okay. All right.
And maybe I shouldn't have said
our
that.
Sales tax in Louisiana, our combined state and local sales tax.
Second highest.
Now highest. According to Daniel this morning.
We beat Tennessee now.
We're followed closely by Tennessee. They're at 9.548. We're at 9.55.
They were winning for a while. And
we have the best schools.
Yeah,
we have the best roads. We have the best infrastructure. If we have the highest tax rate, why don't we have the best stuff?
Because we're wasting money. And one of the tax, the proposed spending cuts that I proposed from the floor of the Senate was, what about for 1 year, we put a freeze on hiring bureaucrats in the state bureaucracy. When I was in the legislature, I believe the number we had 38,000 state employees working in the executive branch for the state bureaucracy. I said, well, let's not kick people out of their jobs and make them have to, sell their homes and all. Okay, we'll let them keep their jobs. Great, fabulous. That they're not, they're not criminals. But how about we put a moratorium on hiring new people and shrink the government? What would that have done? Over a period of time, it would have saved millions of dollars. Well, there's nothing wrong with government getting smaller, because the bigger it grows, the bigger government, it gets bigger, more expensive, more willing to take away rights and freedoms.
You sound like a libertarian.
Okay, well.
More than a Republican, actually. Okay. And I don't say that in a bad way.
Okay. Well, what do y'all think about the government?
I think
the federal government's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I think we can do with way less government.
Yes.
Local, federal, state.
John, I've known you a long time. So the biggest criticism I hear about John Milkovich is this, and so I'm going to confront you directly.
Okay.
And
by the way, for the listeners out there, she did not give me a heads up on this.
Nothing, no.
She did not warn me about this question.
We don't pre-question.
I don't pre-question, folks. You don't play well with others, and so therefore you don't get put in leadership positions in legislative sessions. Are you going to work on that, or do you think it's true first?
Well, I will say this: when I was in the legislature for 4 years, were there times that I got mad when I sensed that legislators were selling out the voters so they could take care of their lobbyists? And that is I think a critical issue in government is politicians who take a stand making speeches, and then as soon as they get south of Florida and Lucas, they're no longer taking stands; they're taking orders from the PAC, special interest lobbyists, politicians, and bureaucrats. So I did take stands, and there were times when I confronted what I thought was hypocrisy. However, the fact of the matter is, this was an article written by Justin DeCharia, who was a journalist with the Baton Rouge Advocate, who said, I think it was published in 2016 or 17, he said that the average rate of passage for freshman legislators, percentage of their bills that got passed, was 11%. He said mine was 25%. By the way, I'm not sure how he came up with those statistics, to be completely honest. But this is what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to be honest and fair with honest legislators that want to do the right thing. But when it comes to game playing, when it comes to taking away our rights, when it comes to wasting our money,
not going to do it.
Hey, I think people need to take a stand, and then we need to figure out, and the voters need to figure it out. Is this is a smile across the aisle time, flowery speeches and nice rhetoric, smooth politicians, or is this time where we need to take a stand?
Well, I'm just concerned because he has no passion. There's no excitement. So I don't know.
John, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for this strong industrial strength coffee.
You bet.
And by the way, I want to repeat that Pastor Denny Uron says you guys have a great show, and
Thank you.
He is a genius. So God bless you, Aaron.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
You
having
bet.
me, Mike.
John, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so
John
much.
Milkovich with Mike and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710 Keel.com.